Alfie, thank you so much for joining us. Hello, Sarah. It's lovely to meet you.
Oh, hi, lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'll just begin with the acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Menang people. We're so lucky to be able to come here and share stories on this beautiful Noongar Budja that's been cared for by them for thousands of years. I'd also like to acknowledge the elders, past, present, and emerging. Sarah, where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining from the beautiful village of Berrima in the New South Wales Southern Highlands. Uh, it's a tiny, tiny village, and probably no one has heard of it. And it has probably about 800 people in it. And it's the Gundungurra people who are in this area and have lived here for forever and ever. But yeah, it's a gorgeous little village.
That's lovely. I did want to hear a little bit more about this village actually, because in my gentle internet stalking that I do to prepare, I had heard you talking about it. So is it like as in a lot of sort of heritage listed kind of buildings?
It is. It's got the famous sort of reputation or title as being the most intact Georgian village on mainland Australia. So there are really amazing old sandstone heritage buildings everywhere. It's really just one main street and a couple of blocks of cottages and houses. But there's a massive old jail, big sandstone jail that's been sold to developers, and there's a big outcry at the moment with the village trying to stop that being developed into a huge three-story hotel.
Oh,
And lots of beautiful, beautiful old heritage buildings, and we have the longest continuously licensed pub in Australia here.
fabulous. That's everything you need.
Absolutely. You don't need anything else.
Was there a few sessions down at the pub when writing Alfie Bains?
Uh, well, maybe not when writing, Alfie, but just definitely I do toddle down there with my family for a meal very often. Yeah.
Gorgeous. I do love a pub, the fact that they tend to be the oldest buildings in a town. I recently
Yeah.
took my parents to Pemberton. We did like a little road trip for one of their birthdays. It was just gorgeous. I had a good sticky beat round the hotel there. Can recommend the steak sandwich. Uh, now, Sarah, one of the things we like to do to start off is find out a little bit about what our author's relationship is to reading when they were younger, how they
Mhm.
came to reading, what their favourite authors were.
Mm. Look, I remember being encouraged to read and coming from a family who had books in the house. But my very first recollection of being absolutely entranced by a book was Enid Blyton's Famous Five. Just the mystery and the fact that I got it for Christmas when I was 9, I suppose, and that it was over in a day, and I just wanted another one. And back then, you didn't get books very often as gifts, and we weren't very close to a library. So yeah, I remember being so annoyed that I had to wait forever to get another book. Yeah, but I was always sort of reading books, and mysteries have always been my favorite.
I think I was spoiled. My mum had her set from when she was younger. And so
Uh-huh.
I had the full set. So as soon as I started reading, I didn't have to stop. I think there was 21. I was very quiet.
Oh, that's so lucky.
They're just gorgeous, aren't they? That
Mm.
mystery and that sense of wonder.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah. And what
And
about
yeah.
your writing origin story? Do you have an origin story for your
Yeah,
message
well,
writing?
um, I suppose I sort of got out of my career when we moved to this little town. There was limited opportunities to work, and I'd sort of just had a baby, and so I thought I'll study. So I started a master's in general writing. So it wasn't creative writing, it was all sorts of writing. And we did one creative writing subject in which we were taught that to write a novel, you needed to use this method, and they'd called it the snowflake method. And it was this American guy who'd come up with it, and it was about sort of starting with a branch and then branching off and doing little bits and pieces and adding. And it was very specific about the way you should write a novel. And I tried to do it and couldn't. And I thought, well, there goes me. I'm not a novelist. And I put that away for several years, being quite downcast that I couldn't do it the way they said. And thought, well, maybe I could write a picture book. So I did a course, and I tried for a long time to get this beautiful picture book published that I hadn't illustrated. I'd just written the 400 words. And everyone said in these courses, don't do the illustrations. If the words are good, they'll get you through. But nobody wanted my 400 words. So I thought, oh, look, I'll write a kids chapter book. So, for 8 to 10-year-olds. And I did another course because I'm a course junkie. And I wrote this book about a girl with second sight, and she could see the future, and she knew her teacher was about to die and she needed to do something to stop it. This sort of her father's creation called the Hovaloon was going to fail and sort of squash her teacher dead, and it was all going to be a disaster, but nobody wanted to publish that. And I thought, right, okay. But I think the thing that got me sort of started on this path of keeping going and not giving up was that the very first thing I did write was a little story for a kids magazine, and I sent it into the school magazine, which in New South Wales is very well known in the primary schools because it goes out from the government to the primary schools as a teaching aid. And to get a story in that magazine is quite difficult, apparently. I didn't know this. But my 1,000-word story earned me $1,000. And I thought, well, this is easy. And it was like, look out, here I come. That I can earn a living doing this.
Yeah.
I, of course, rejected my next several stories. But it made me think, oh, it's possible to get something published. So then I started on the picture book and the chapter book, and none of those got me anywhere. So then I did another course, and so then I thought I'll write a novel. And one day I woke up with an idea. I got up, I wrote it down, and I started writing a novel, and got about 40,000 words in, which is, a bit less than halfway, and realized I had no idea what I was doing. So I did a course, and and I got that finished. So yeah, that was my story.
We need to get that embroidered on a throw pillow for you. Don't know what to do? Do a course.
I'm very good at courses. I did actually finish that book, and that was my first published books, Good Little Liars, which, although Alfie Bains has been promoted in Australia as a debut, that was my very first novel, and that was published by a British digital publisher called Bookshop.
Yeah. And did you do two with them?
I did. I got a 2-book deal. Often with those digital publishers, if they're good, like Bookshop are very, very good and big, and they sell a lot of copies, but they're feeding a market who are not necessarily the same market that traditional publishers are feeding. They're feeding a market who want a really good story and they want them quickly. So you need to be able to write 2 books a year, often 3 books a year. And they'll only ever give you at least a 2-book deal.
Yeah.
And they said to me when they took it, can you have another book written in 5 months? And I said, sure, because I wanted that publication deal.
Yeah.
And so I did write another book in 6. I got an extension, so it took me 6 months to write my next book, which I really enjoyed that challenge, but it was a challenge, and I thought I may die if I keep going at this rate. So that, it turns out, wasn't the publication model for me. And I thought, if I'm going to keep going, I'm going to need to try and do something different and get published traditionally. Yeah.
How would you say the process of being published, like with the digital publisher and a traditional print publisher, has varied?
Well, there's a lot more when the publisher is going to the huge expense and work of printing a book to be distributed around the country. There's a lot that goes into that. So it's a very slow process. So I handed Alfie essentially in its current form 2 years ago, and that was when I signed my contract. And so 2 years ago it was ready, but it took until then for all of the 4 stages of the editing process to go, and then the final book is printed, and then there's several months where the advanced copies are out to readers, and then the press releases start, and then it's a long time and it's a long lead up. With digital publishing, it's fast and cheap, and it's I guess as a side product of that, you know, there is a slightly less focus on the quality of every word. There's the editing. You go through the fairly rigorous editing process, similar to traditional publishing, but there isn't the level of attention and detail, and it's a quicker turnaround. And when I look back at my first novels, I still think they're really good stories. But if I look at them critically now, I think, oh, I could do with a little bit more editing in that space there and in that page there, that kind of thing. So I think it's quite different in that pace is quite different, as well as you don't get to meet readers or talk to them like you do, traditionally. Mm.
Yeah. Was it quite jarring going from one to another? Like, did you have times where you're like, oh, this is going so slow with the traditional because you'd done two very, very fast?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a bit annoying that I had to wait for so long. But having said that, with Allen and Unwin, I did get another 2-book deal. And so in that sort of 18-month period where I wasn't editing Alfie, I was writing my next book, which is I'm about to finish the third structural edit this week and give back to them for the final tidy up, and that should be out in May next year.
Ooh, that's a bit exciting.
Yeah.
Have you got a title for it yet, or nothing that you can say?
At the moment, the working title is The Bookshop of Buried Pasts.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a mystery. I'm going a little bit back to my mystery roots. It's about an antiquarian book dealer who's 80 years old, and she leaves a request for her granddaughter, asking her to find a guy a man that she names, and sort of unravels the mystery of her grandmother's life across continents. So it's a bit different.
I need to email my Allen and Unwin rep. One of the best things about a bookseller, you get the advanced reading copies.
That's true. Yeah. Excellent.
And what does it look like when you write? Obviously, your deadlines can sometimes be very vastly different, but what is the sort of setup? Are you sealed in a room with red string going everywhere across the walls? Are you sticky notes, or does it 2 hours a day kind of type of thing?
Yeah, I write full time, not necessarily novels, but I'm a copywriter as well, and so in some respects I'm doing something all the time. But for my creative work, if I'm not doing things like this, I spend the morning writing generally. So I might get up this morning it was 5 because I'm on deadline, and I sort of worked till breakfast and then did another couple of hours and then went for a walk, and I just sort of do 2-hour blocks until I run out of steam through the day or run out of time or have something else on. But yeah, I get up, I make a coffee, I go straight to my desk at 6 o'clock or whatever time I'm up, and then for me, like I've got my 100-page manuscript here, and I will put that out on the floor in chapters later on tonight, because it's quite a complex 3-timeline book, and there are 4 points of view again, and because it's over 3 timelines across 50 years, there's a lot of spaces where information can be dropped in, and it doesn't have to be chronological. So sometimes I get really confused on the screen, and I think, oh, I don't know where I read that. Or, I mean, I work in Scrivener, so that's a program you might know about that helps you to move chapters around and so on. But even so, after I've handed it in for the first draft to my publisher, I put it back into Word, because that's how they work with their edits.
Yeah.
So you've got a 100,000 word document, and it's quite hard to kind of juggle it. So I print this, and now I will move pages around on the floor and think, okay, that paragraph from there probably because it's a mystery and because it's quite complex, I need to work out where the clues are and from which timeline they belong to. So yeah, it's like a jigsaw, really.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it. And visually, it's 100% like a jigsaw
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ah, there you go. It's so interesting to hear authors' different approaches. Everyone seems to come to it differently, which is kind of
Yes, exactly. That's why this I think this sort of masters they really need to be told not to tell people this is the only method to write a book
yeah, yeah.
because
Snowflake or death.
yes, exactly. It's so everyone's so different and everyone will be doing it differently. And yeah, I ring my sister every day and we just chat through my what I've emailed her from the day before. And she's a clinical psychologist, so she will help me profile my characters and help me think of ways that they would act in type and things like that. So we kind of work on characters together, and I have someone who can talk to me about the story, which is really nice.
Yeah.
I know some people don't do that, but I like doing that.
Yeah, some people like to keep it close until they're ready to reveal all.
Yeah, yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about the process of you won the Dimmick's Fiona McIntosh Commercial Fiction Scholarship?
Mm.
What was that like? Was that something that you had, I presume you had to submit for?
Yeah, so when I finished my first book, Good Little Liars, I have a copy here. It's got it's the weird cover where the woman is walking into the lake, drowning herself, has absolutely nothing to do with the story. That's the other thing about digital publishing. It's all about I don't know, the way they market. Um, but that book, the opening chapter is what won me that scholarship. So before I started submitting it to publishers, Fiona McIntosh and Dmx ran this sort of national competition to put in your first, I don't know, 2,000 words or whatever it was at the opening of a book, and so I did that, and and out of the blue, I don't know how I won it, and it was very exciting. I didn't expect it at all, but that got me to. They flew me to Adelaide, which was like very cool. I got to stay down in Adelaide for 5 days and do a masterclass with her, so that was really fun.
And was that sort of an example as well of like how different the writing approach can be? Did you kind of go to some sort of methods?
Yeah, Fiona is an absolute whirlwind. She is a machine. She writes several books a year, and her energy levels are insane. And uh, I did learn things from her about creating tension and writing synopses. Which at that point I was about to pitch my book, so she helped me write a synopsis, which was great. Yeah, no, she was very very kind, and it was a really fun week. And I met lots of people who have been really helpful to me actually in my journey, because that's where I first met my publisher, Annette Barlow, was at a Fiona McIntosh National Conference of her authors who she's taught in her classes. Yeah.
Yeah. So beautiful to come together as a community as well, especially when
Yeah,
it's sort of a job that you kind of complete in semi-isolation. So it's so nice to be able to,
exactly.
yeah,
They're
find,
lovely. No,
yeah,
they're fun times to go to those things, especially because I live in a small town, and I do try to go to literary events, but it's a bit of it's a couple of hours each way, so I don't do it all the time. Yeah,
yeah. I think we connect to that a little bit because we're in Albany. We're about 5 hours from Perth, about a 5 hour
yeah,
drive to Perth.
that's
So
big.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I got to go to a book conference recently myself and got to see all the bookstore owners and people that work in bookstores up in Perth and went, I don't live in a vacuum. It was nice.
And you've got an amazing festival happening over there that Tess Woods has started, I understand.
Yes, yeah,
That sounds
exactly.
fabulous.
Yeah,
I'd love to come over to that one
excellent.
day.
Wow.
Mm.
We've had Tess as an author for our book club, so
Yeah, it's
I'll reach
lovely.
out.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to come to that.
Yeah. Um, and are you able to, it's something I always love asking, are you able to read as you write? Because you're writing all the time, whether it's, as you say, creative or for your copywriting. Are
Mhm.
you able to read as you do it, or do you have to try and
Yeah.
read something that's very different?
No, I read all the time. I it doesn't bother me. I find that I get inspired too when I'm reading other people's work. I mean, you're writing in your own voice, but just little things about the way they solve problems, or you'll just any you can get such inspiration. And because I'm always writing, I'd never be reading if I didn't read and write at the same time. So
Exactly, yeah.
yeah, no, it's good. I do.
What's something you've read recently that you can recommend?
I've just finished Meg Bignell's The Good Losers,
Yeah.
which I loved because she's I know you guys probably have read The Angry Women's Choir, which I really love too. And this was hilarious and madcap. I really loved it. It's set in a rowing community in northern Tasmania,
Yeah.
and it's excellent. That was an audio book. I'm usually reading audio and physical book at the same time.
Mm.
I'm reading The Arc of Joanna Nell's new book at the moment.
Yeah.
And also Amy Lovett, whose book's just come out, Big Feelings. That's one that I'm enjoying as well. And one I'm absolutely loving at the moment, because I read 3 books at a time usually, is Michael Thompson's new book. I don't know if you know Michael Thompson, but he has a little bit of magical realism in his writing. But otherwise it's normal. So what's his current book called? I can't remember what it's called. It'll come to me in a minute, but it's about a GP who suddenly has the ability to know how many days each of his patients has left to live, and
Yeah.
what he does with that information. And it's a beautiful, beautiful book. So that's just out. I think it's called All the Perfect Days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds intriguing. I do quite like it when they've just got a tiny little bit of,
Just a little bit.
yeah, just a little bit slipped through. Kind of like Matt Haig, he does that as well. Yeah.
Exactly, the Midnight Library. And actually my new book has got a tiny bit of magical realism in that the 80-year-old antiquarian book dealer has the ability to know things. So she's a seer. But it's only with very certain things. She just has a really finely honed intuition. Mm.
And I'd love to ask, we speak about inspiration and how we read for inspiration, people watch like No Tomorrow. What's the spark for Alfie? Do your novels normally have like a spark that starts it off, or is it a accumulation of things?
Uh, well, Alfie is obviously set in Stanley in Northwest Tassie, and I was in Stanley. Um, and that's where I did some of my growing up as a young child. My family, my mum's family are all from there, and I go there often. And I was down there on a writing retreat with my sister. She was doing her work from home, and I was doing my work.
Mm.
And it was in 2021, I think.
Yeah.
And she's from Queensland, so we meet often to go on trips together. And we were staying in this apartment in Stanley, and suddenly, and I was writing a book about a Wiccan who was this beautiful, ethereal, sort of witch-like creature. But I decided to make it into a murderous psychopath. So she was kind of sort of a really interesting creature, because Stanley and the Nut, if you know Stanley, or if you've ever been there, or if you've heard Alfie describe it, there's a big rock there which is called the Nut, and you climb it, and it's covered in hemlock plants which are really witchy, and the moonbirds nest there on their migration from Antarctica, I think. And all these sort of witchy ideas, and I thought I'll write about a Wiccan and make her a murderous psychopath, and I'll write a sort of a thriller. And it was lockdown, and it had been COVID, but we were out of lockdown. And then suddenly my sister got a text to go into lockdown. And as she was from Queensland, everyone from Queensland had to go into lockdown, but I'm from New South Wales, so I didn't. So we were suddenly in this situation where she had to stay in the apartment, and her friends who were doing the overland track in Tassie at the time, they got choppered out. Like someone actually sent a chopper to get them out of the forest where they were so clearly going to be spreading it to 0 people. And And then my parents, who were from Queensland, were on the GAN, the
Yeah.
train that
Oh,
goes from Darwin to Adelaide, and they got locked in their cabin for the entire trip. And anyway, it was so distressing for my parents especially, but my sister was like, "Oh, this really sucks. We can't do anything. We had all these plans." And I was writing and I was researching psychopaths, and it was really awful, and I was feeling really sad. And suddenly I found this scene of a I'd written on my laptop when I was generally just writing scenes, and I find them later on and they might not mean anything. But I opened this scene, and it was the scene of a farmer opening her door to a little boy. And neither she nor I knew who the little boy was. That was where the scene literally ended.
yeah.
But I thought I need some happiness in my life. I'm going to find out who this little boy is. And so that was how Alfie was born, I guess. Yeah.
I love that. So you've just got a treasure chest of possible inspiration on your laptop.
Well, it's funny. This new book started from a scene that I had really vividly years ago too. It was an old woman, joyful, gorgeous old woman looking out the window, about to take her final breath, but just there was mischief in her thinking, and she was thinking about what she was leaving behind for this girl. And just that scene had stuck with me, and that sort of inspired this book too. So I thought, oh, okay, that could be a whole book. I don't know how, but it's a lot of work to get it to the point where it is a whole book. But
Yeah.
just building, really, just building and building.
Yeah, gorgeous. And one of the things that I love about Alfie, and sounds like I'm going to love about your next one, is just how alive the characters are. The characters are wonderfully quirky and fun and complex. And I am one of three sisters as well. So I very much connected to the sisters' relationship. Was that drawn a little bit from life? You seem like you're quite close with your sister.
I have three sisters, yeah. So I'm one of four sisters. And so, and my mum's one of three sisters, and um, we have lots of cousins. There are 17 cousins on my mum's side from Northwest Tasmania. We're all really close. So I guess, yes, definitely there's a whole sister thing going on in my head all the time.
Yeah.
So that's fun to do. And definitely looking around, in my own family, I can get endless inspiration.
Well, that's always nice. We
But I
had
don't tell them.
yeah, it's a secret. We had Derv Lamentian in with us last month, and she's got a great villain in her latest one. And she was
Uh-huh.
saying it's fun to write a villain when it's someone that you interact with who's treated you poorly, because you can be like, oh, really hated how they did that. You're going to be the baddie. Do you ever
Exactly.
have that? Can you like slot that in your
Yeah.
novel?
Well, this is really exciting because if people have already read the book, I can sort of say whatever I want now. So
Yeah,
that's
you can. Yeah, it's
yeah. Well,
unusual experience.
well, the character of Pat, who starts off being lovely and everybody likes him, is definitely drawn from several good friends who turned out to be married to absolute idiots. And I was so taken in by these men for my whole adult life, how lovely they were and how wonderful they were. And suddenly, at the age of 50, all these marriages that you valued and loved are falling apart around you.
Yeah,
And you think, how did I misjudge those men so badly? How did I not see that they were coercively controlling assholes?
yeah.
So, yeah, a little bit drawn from
Same.
real life. Yeah.
You did such a good job of layering that as well, where as a reader we are so taken in by how other people perceive him. And we don't, it takes a little while before you twig as a reader and go, wait, there's something a bit sus about this guy.
Yeah.
Um, how did you find the process of giving enough of that, giving enough hints that the reader, you start to feel suspicious of him, but not so many that it's given away right at the start. Is that quite a difficult challenge?
Yeah, I think it is difficult. Like there were tiny clues very early on, like she tries to chew quietly and she's quite, poor Cynthia, who is my favorite character, is um, making herself very small.
Mm,
And but that was done in a very kind of restrained way because obviously I needed you to love him first. Because, in my experience, I've loved all these men who turned out to be assholes. And
mm,
that is so distressing as an intelligent, thinking, aware, concerned person who's worked in the criminal courts. That is really concerning that I can be taken in so badly. And so I wanted people to kind of, and I'm so trusting as well. I'm so trusting. And so I wanted people to kind of feel that sort of that warmth that you can feel towards those people for so long, long after you probably should have stopped giving them chances. Mm.
yeah. And he's sneaky with it too, with his sort of negging of her
Yeah,
in front of
yeah,
other people. And it's not sort
yeah,
of really obvious things. You could go, oh, maybe they just joke around. And then you realize
yeah,
it's a one sided kind of joke as well.
yeah. And I think
Mm.
I am very aware of people who do that now, but maybe I haven't always been. And I think we learn and as we grow up.
Yeah, yeah. And it was interesting to have Julian's character as well, not quite so polished as
Mm.
his father, but definitely raised to be the same, to be a mirror image.
Yeah, I think parents can favor children or children can perceive their favor and they get away with a lot. And I think there's a lot in the genetics as well. So, if you think about Alfie being of a similar kind of a genetic disposition to, say, Cynthia and Noah and Ned, Noah and Ned being essentially the same person, I guess, that sort of essential disposition of being quite a watcher and a thinker, and just generally made up differently to Julian, who was like his father. And, when you are given such gifts at birth of beauty and charm and charisma and all of those things, and you are told that you are wonderful, it can really change you. Mm.
Mm. And speaking of some of these characters, did you have a favorite character? And was that character different from the person who it was best, like a most enjoyable experience to write?
Alfie was certainly the most joyous to write. It was the easiest to write. When I handed the book, when I got an agent finally, before I started pitching Alfie, I thought I'm going to try and get an agent, and I did. And Melanie Ostell is brilliant, my agent, and she said to me, and the book was in very good shape because I'd worked on it for a long time. But she said, "Look, when Alfie's not on the page, we really miss him. I think you need 4 more chapters of Alfie." And she suggested the places where they might go.
Mm.
And I, given the opportunity to write 4 Alfie chapters was like super easy. Like if you'd asked me to write anyone else's chapters, that would have been hard. But his voice is very familiar to me, probably because I have a couple of weirdo children a little bit like that, but that's just between us. So I really loved writing Alfie, but my favorite character is probably Cynthia because I I really felt for her as a person. And I couldn't write the character of Amelia. I tried to write Amelia, Alfie's mother's voice, um, but I couldn't write it. I think maybe it felt a little bit too familiar to me, like the challenge of raising difficult, tricky children was just a bit too close to home. So maybe I thought, you're challenged by that too much, but I really feel for Cynthia and I really wanted to write her experience and I really loved writing her experience, but um, I really loved her too. So maybe you can feel that warmth I had towards her in the book, I hope. Mm.
I loved her and I loved seeing her growth and development throughout the novel. I feel like she just blossomed. I know it's a
Yeah.
little bit trite, but she really blossomed. I felt like I got to know her so well. And I think at the beginning, you know, she's judged so harshly by the people in the community, and you can't help but maybe in those chapters kind of go, and then you get back to her chapter and you see it through her eyes, and she's just, yeah, she's absolutely gorgeous. I loved her interactions with, with Hannah.
With
I'm blanking on her name. Sorry.
now you're stressing me out. What's her name? I can't even remember. The one who the one who has a baby with Noah in the end.
Harper.
Harper, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, don't worry, I can't remember them either.
I loved her interactions with Harper. They were just so good every single time. There was such a dynamic. They were so different.
Yeah, obviously she's a very open-minded person, because Harper could easily be a character that people arc up to, but you know, Cynthia really appreciated Harper, and I appreciate Harper. I appreciate Harper's sweary mouth.
Yes, yeah. She told it how it was. And I love how she interacts with Alfie as well. Doesn't sort of treat him like a kid.
Yeah, no, she's very cool.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to quickly mention, because I don't want to forget to ask about it, how did the map come about at the start?
Well, I thought to myself, Alfie would draw a map. And then I said to my middle daughter, who's an artist, can you draw me a map? And so she drew me that map. How good's that? So that's Grace Lewis is my daughter.
Oh,
She's my one neurotypical one, the one who's who's quite artistic. So that's lovely.
yeah. Oh, well, she's a clever clogs. I absolutely loved the map.
Yeah, she did that for me out under sufferance, I have to say, but good on her.
I feel like we should petition for all books to have maps. I love it. I don't have the attention span of fantasy, but I want a map.
It is fun. And my divine darling baby girl daughter Georgie, she really wanted to have a bit more of a say in the book, but unfortunately there was no other skills that we could draw on in the family to get her in the front pages. So the poor darling, she just got a mention in the back.
Next one.
Like a bit of sibling rivalry going on there.
And poor mum has to try and manage all that.
Exactly. She's very good on guitar.
Yes. Was it difficult to navigate from the voice of Alfie, a child, to the voices of the adults who have such a different perspective about the events that are happening at the time as well?
No, not really. I think everything about writing this book, apart from writing Noah, was easy. Because of Alfie. Alfie was just made everything easy, and because I could feel Alfie in my bones, I felt like I could know exactly how. I mean, I'm an old lady at heart, so you know, it was easy for me to write older people. I mean, I was born 65 with my slippers on. I never go out. I, Being a 65-year-old farmer in your house on your own is like, you know, basically my best life. So they were easy for me, those characters. Noah really challenged me because he's a guy, and I mean, essentially he's just a good person. So you just have to kind of approach it like that, I think.
Yeah. He's not like a drama guy. He's just
yeah. And he is essentially an amalgam of all the beautiful men I know in my
the
family.
antithesis of Patrick.
Yeah.
I adored Hillary. I've said to everyone tonight I've been talking to, I loved Hillary so much. I just feel like I really connected with her. The scene where she says to Alfie that they're soulmates because he compliments her good value op shop scarf.
Yeah, I love a good value op shop, I have to say.
Yeah, exactly. None of these, you know, ridiculously priced ones. We want a good, you know, $1, $2 op shop.
Yeah, no, we ours are all ridiculously priced here in Bowral, we're the next big town over, but never mind. We still get some good things in there.
Yeah. I loved how familiar the community felt in the novel, where you know you had that really long-reaching social memory as well. How was that to sort of tie together? I know we've talked about how you place out, your chapters to try and make sure that all the clues are given at the right times. Did you do something similar to try and decide, how everyone's going to be connected? So, for example, like with Patrick and Hillary having dated, and Cynthia and Hillary having been best friends in high school.
I mean, in essence, I sort of just start with Alfie. I had in my mind that the climax would be a big town event. So I thought something's going to happen at this town event. And I knew that if I set that event in what is essentially Highfield House, the Hillary and Cynthia and Pat's house, which is taken from Highfield House in Stanley. It's a very rugged, sort of remote cliff top where this beautiful big old house sits, and the ocean just is dramatically smashing against the rocks below, and there's a little bit of forest, and there's this and that. If I set the town event in their fancy house, in their garden, that would work for a climax. I didn't know what it was going to be. So I just thought I'm working towards this town event. I've got these characters. I sort of very quickly started with, the opening where Penny's in the toilet and the phone rings, and the sisters. So I very quickly had some sisters because they're easy. And then I thought, well, who are this power couple who live up on the hill? They'd probably be connected through their children, because everybody's children go to school together in Tasmania and everybody knows everybody. But actually, it always goes back more generations than that. So, the parents know each other from back in their university days and their parents. And so, I sort of just start with a chapter and then I write another chapter, and then I think, where's this going? And who needs to be related to who to make that work? And then I kind of muck around like that for about a year, and eventually I get there.
Perfect. And do you ever have to, kill your darlings? Did you have like a character or a pivotal sort of section of the novel that you had to remove to make it what it is today?
Well, I had this awesome chapter, which I really wanted to put in, which after the party, but before he goes to catch the plane to England at the end, Noah goes home and he goes from his shed house down the cliffside and sits on the beach and watches the fairy penguins come up from the ocean at night time, because actually that's what happens in Stanley. When I went there to write, those noisy little buggers would wake you up every morning. And one morning I decided to get up and look at them, and so it was sort of 5 a.m. It was freezing cold, and I knew I was in this Airbnb the second time I went down, and there was this upside down bathtub with a sign on it that said penguins only, and then like this sort of rope across in the back garden. So I thought, there's probably penguins roosting there, because I know they roost everywhere in the town. The tiny fairy penguins. And I sort of hid in the garage, and it was dark, and I just sort of stayed there still. And then I could see these tiny little flapping penguins just come up a little bit, and then they'd look because they could smell me or see me or something. And then eventually, after they'd sort of watched and waited, they'd run across the road into the garden of the next door house and towards the ocean. And anyway, I wanted to put Noah watching his penguins, because they were like his penguins. They were right in his garden, and he was going to sort of think about what he was leaving, and the sadness in him of leaving this place to go with this woman he didn't love, even though he hadn't admitted that at the time, and just saying goodbye to his penguins. And my agent goes, yeah, get rid of the penguins. I'm like, no. She's like, you haven't got enough. There's too many words. Get rid of the penguin chapter. So that really killed me.
Penguins got the cut.
I know. It was so sad. Anyway, that was one.
That is brutal. Do you ever, like, when you have to cut scenes like that, do you ever sort of like, do you have a folder where, like on a hard drive, where they go just, to maybe be drawn back from again, or are they're gone?
That would involve me having a memory that I have a folder. Like I'm the most disorganized person. I have 6 notes on different walls tonight to remind me I had this Zoom. I am so forgetful. I put 4 alarms on. I'm not kidding. I have no idea what's on my computer. I don't know how I get a book written. But anyway, so no, I don't have that. I
I
often
think
stumble across things I've saved as some random thing. And mum emailed me the other day and she goes, you know that novel you started and you got halfway through and you sent it to me about this girl who plays a cello and she gets lost in the forest. I'm like, no. She goes, yeah. And she sent me this whole half a novel I'd written that I'd forgotten. So no, I have a terrible memory.
you're like reading through going, damn, that's onto something.
I was reading it going, this is really good. Why did I give up on this?
Well, that'd make rereading a joy for you
Yeah,
because you're
exactly.
always, getting a new story each time.
Quite surprised. You're like, how did I do this?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the labeled alarm for reminding me about things. People are
Uh-huh.
like, oh, make sure you remind me about that. I'm like, great, okay, let me remind me about that. um,
Exactly.
yeah. And did you ever have like a character that you cut out from Alfie?
I don't think
Or
I can't remember. Like, I honestly, I can't remember that one.
to be fair, it was you
Maybe
as well.
nobody important.
Fair enough. And another thing I kind of want to talk about because it was something that as I was reading it, I was going, oh, this could be a good meaty book club discussion, is the idea of custody and how Patrick is trying to get custody of Alfie. And he definitely takes things that he's heard a child say to try and use them as like leverage to gain that. And I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit more and
Hmm.
how you navigated writing that because obviously we see Amelia and we see what an amazing mum she is, but we also know, especially with neurodivergent children, like it can be so challenging sometimes with what they say. My nephew is autistic and ADHD, and the things that kid comes out with.
Yeah, it can be scary, right? Look, I think I love that topic because um, there is never anything fair about any of it.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever feel like any of it is fair. And so you can kind of approach it as you want in a book to manipulate the readers. But I mean, I suppose like when I think about my own situation, I have no recollection of meeting my father till I was 25. And that's probably because my mum took off with us when I was little and we had a silent phone number and she didn't tell us where we lived. Now, that's if you were my father, that would probably feel extremely unfair.
Mm.
Um, and I didn't really know about him, and she never talked about him. She never said anything bad about him. She never disparaged him. But when I think about my big sister, who's 3 years older, who says to me, my earliest memories are when mum would send me, when Dennis, our father, would have me for the weekend. And I just remember that all my only memories are being sat on the bar in the pub and all these men being there. And my father was a terrible alcoholic and non-functioning, very clever meteorologist who just couldn't do life. And very unwell with his alcoholism. And I think about my mum and the story, when I was my mum told me one story before I met him at the age of 25. She said, look, he I don't think he was ever going to be a good father to you because when I left him and came back to the northwest of Tassie to my family, my very embracing family, so I was raised with lots of love. But when I came back, there was one day I got a letter from my cousin in Canberra who he'd run into where we'd been living. And she wrote this letter to my mum saying she was so very sorry to hear that little Sarah had been killed in that terrible car accident. She'd run into my father and he'd relayed this terrible news. Obviously, there was no car accident, and I am fine. But the, my father was a pathological liar and very unwell person, obviously. But still, does he get not to see his children? I mean, my mum made that decision. She just took off and off we went, and we had a lovely life and a stepfather who was lovely, and it was fine. But
Mm.
it doesn't, there are no easy answers.
Mm.
That's the point, I guess. There are no easy answers.
Yeah, and Alfie Bains, it did a really good job of, I think, highlighting that, because you do have sympathy for, for Cynthia. You don't want Cynthia to not be able to have a relationship with Alfie, because, we see how wonderful she is with him. So I think, yeah, that was such a good way to explore that. And I feel like it's a good one for everyone to kind of be able to weigh in on and go, oh, I like, this bit about it. I liked this character. I felt that they were, you know, someone who should be in his life. But I love how it ended up being the community that he becomes a part of.
Yeah, there's a whole new community there. I think I do feel sorry for grandparents, though, in those custody situations. I was raised by my stepfather from when I was tiny, and so his mother became a grandmother to me. And I know her other son, it was a very tragic story. And, he committed suicide, and the wife didn't let her see the grandchildren after that. And that broke her heart. She was the kindest, dearest woman. And I just thought, wow, what a terrible, terrible thing to go to your grave not seeing those beautiful baby children that were yours.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's so well balanced in Alfie
Mm.
as well. We get these, brilliantly nuanced topics, and they never feel too heavy. Alfie is like this light that just keeps the story buoyant, and keeps you being able to read, so that you can reflect, but without feeling too glum. I definitely
Yeah,
loved how joyful, this novel ended up being, like, overall. I sort of went,
yeah.
oh, I can read happy books. I'd read like a heap of sad books around it, kind of thing. And, oh,
I think there's lots of scope to do humor in sadness. Like I love uh Death at the Sign of the Rook is the latest one by what's her name?
Atkinson. Um,
Uh
Sarah
anyway, I can't
Atkinson's
remember her name. I
surname.
love her. Anyway, she's
Kate. Thank you. Yes, Kate Atkinson.
Kate
That's it.
Atkinson. Yeah, there we go. And brilliant, brilliant author. But she does humor mixed with, some of her books do in the Jackson Brodie series do humor mixed with sex trafficking, and it's amazing because
Yeah, you wouldn't think you'd be able to do it, but she does.
but she does it, and it's like, oh my God, I would never read a book about sex trafficking,
Hmm.
but she does it with this sort of excoriating wit and levity, and like there's just something about her writing that I love, and I think if you can do a bit of both, you kind of keep your audience a little bit less wanting to slit their wrists, maybe.
I'm a bit of a sucker for reading sad Irish stuff as well.
Yeah.
It's just
Yes,
like,
yeah, Claire Keegan
just,
and all of those beautiful.
yeah, just
Yeah,
staring out at the rain falling down, like, oh,
yeah, yeah.
I don't think even a
Uh,
biscuit's going to fix this.
yeah, they are beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah, they're gorgeous. And one of the other things that I kept thinking as I was reading it, and gleefully sort of started asking people, is, who would you cast? Because
Oh,
it feels like I could so see it being a mini series, because the characters was just so vivid, and it was just, it had that beautiful humor that we appreciate from Australian film and television. And I want to know, who's your dream cast? You can pick anyone.
oh, wow. Well, I forgot to think about this because I did see that list and then I forgot to think about it. Um, I saw Naomi Watts in a cast as an older woman the other day. She looked pretty good. Like maybe she'd be good as like a Penny or a Cynthia. And who is that Tasmanian woman? That show set on the west coast of Tassie where she's run with her children and she gets caught in a gang of drug runners.
There's muttering. It's I can't hear a clear name though. Marta Dusseldorf.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. She's awesome. I don't know who she'd be, but maybe she'd be Hillary. I don't know. She'd be cool.
Yeah.
Uh, there is this really, really cool little Irish actor who my sister sent me a clip of, and I don't know his name, but he was playing a kid called Alfie in the show she sent me, and he was awesome. So let's have him. I don't know who he is, but anyway, he's got the job.
Done.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anyone else from the audience have any casting they decide? I'm looking at you, Anna Marie. Yeah. Yeah. You imagine them as themselves rather as someone else. Yeah. Yep. Yes. Even down to the lipstick.
I couldn't hear that, but I hope it was a good one.
And there's been, I've noticed like there's more Aussie film and television happening. Have you ever gone through the process of having like a novel optioned or done screenwriting with all of the different writing that you've done?
No, I haven't. I know my agent's talking to some people at the moment, but no, nothing's come of it. I did actually have a film production company approach me about my second novel, but then COVID hit and then they didn't send me a contract, so that was fine.
COVID. Oh.
COVID. Oh. No, so no, but I'm excited. If anyone wants to make it into a movie, I'm there. I'm with you. I'm signing the contract.
Yeah, I'm in the cinema. I'm sat. And we do like to ask what's coming next. You've given us a taste of what's coming next. So that was that. So that is that your second book in the two-book deal with Allen and Unwin, or is
That's right. Yeah. The Bookshop of Berry Pass is my second book in the two-book deal. So whether or not I get another one will depend on if you all go out and tell everyone to buy these ones.
exactly? Yeah, spread the word, cough it up.
That's right. I have to sell a few more books.
Yeah, you can count on us.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
And then the next thing I'd like to do is, would you be willing to read out a passage?
Sure.
You can pick any section because we read it. So I know that that's sometimes nice that you don't have to read the first page if you don't want to.
Yeah, that's right. Because in those events, you usually have to. I did decide that maybe would you prefer a scene with Hillary or Sophie St. James?
Ooh, what do you reckon, guys? Hillary or Sophie St. James? Hillary? Hillary.
Okay. Okay, so this is when they're about to go to the cemetery. Hillary opens, now can you just forgive me? Anyone who's listened to the audio, I don't do the Irish accent for Alfie, sorry. Hillary opens the door and looks at me as if I'm an interesting insect specimen. Come in, she says. Mum is on the step behind me, her hands on my shoulders. I should be finished by 4 and back by 5. Thanks, Auntie Hill, you're a star. Be good, Alf, and don't ask Hillary to buy you lollies. Your teeth will rot. Unlikely in the space of 1 day, I say. Touché, says Hillary, and makes one of her eyebrows go up like it's hooked on a fishing line. We wave goodbye to Mum. Well, says Hillary, as she picks up some pill packets on the bench. I wait to see what else she's about to say, but I think she's forgotten the rest of the sentence. Well, what? Well, what are we going to do today, young Alfred? I have several suggestions, but I would like a hot chocolate if it's available. She raises one eyebrow again, and it looks like she's coloured it in because a brown smudges over the edge and the other eyebrow looks darker. No chocolate here. We can go to the Little Fat Cat. Would you like that? Yes, please, I say, and I give her my best smile, and she does the eyebrow thing again, but she kind of squeezes her lips up too, so I'm pretty sure I'm winning her over. I've just finished putting my face on. Give me 5 minutes. She goes upstairs, and I head to the fridge, wondering what part of her face she needs to still put on. Inside are 2 bottles of pink tonic water and some disgusting-looking cheese with mouldy blue lines in it. There's a mini bottle of milk too, which I feel like drinking, but it might be all she has for her cups of tea. And Mum says if you drink the last loaf of milk that was allocated for a woman's cup of tea, she might conceivably lose her mind, depending on what sort of day she's having. I'm not sure about Hillary's day so far, but I think about the wobbly smudge on her eyebrow and I close the fridge. Right. Hillary appears in a red beret with a bright green swirly patterned scarf around her neck that's the same colour as the stuff you throw up when you run out of food to throw up and your stomach's scraping the bottom of the barrel. Nice scarf, I say. Thank you. I got it at the Red Cross shop in Hobart. $2. Excellent value for money. you and I are going to be soulmates, Alfred.
Oh. I love that scene. God, I can picture it. Just so gorgeous. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah. It was such a joy to get to know the characters in this novel, and I absolutely cannot wait for the next one.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'll be over in WA one of these days, I'm sure, so maybe we can get together again sometime.
That sounds perfect. Enjoy your jigsaw puzzling of
Yeah,
the chapters.
I won't. Thank you.
It's
Thanks for
starting to
having
get late
me.
over there.
Oh, look, it's bedtime. Actually, I go to bed at 9.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly. If you're getting up at 5, got to look after your rest.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Big round of applause again.